me say this before we get started. I've seen a lot of things, and I don't claim to be an expert on them, but I am conscious of the work of the Lord, try to be, and the work of the devil also. We shouldn't be ignorant of his devices. But if there's one thing amongst many, we always say like, there's one thing, one point, if you get this, it'll fix your life. You know, it's one thing that'll help your life, but we need all of them to help it all work. But this is one thing that I have noticed as a preacher of the gospel, and the privilege to be able to preach in other places, of one of the things the devil is using in these last days to destroy the work of God. And this is one of them. And it's disunity. Disunity. Disunity within the church, disunity within the brethren, disunity among preachers. Just the devil's throwing that thing out. And so I got a little thought I wrote down. I'm going to read it to you. That way I make sure I say it the way I want to say it. And if you've got a social media account, I don't have one. If you take what I'm about to say, write it down, and put it on your social media account and sign my name, I'll say I said it. Because I'm finna say it. And I believe it really needs to be put out there. And it'll be offensive, but it's okay. Amen. You know, we're never going to get right until somebody offends somebody. And it'll be said in such a way, and hopefully in wisdom and compassion, that it's done to try to help somebody do right. That's why we ought to say things anyhow. But some people will say you're just throwing darts, and some of it I probably just am. I'm kind of a mean guy sometimes. Let's just be honest. I need to work on that compassion side, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic about it, amen, but I'm more on the rugged side than I am on the soft side. And I believe as a man, you need to be a little more rugged than you are soft, but there's not a thing wrong with having some compassion. But this is what I said. And I believe it needs to be said to preachers. This statement I'm about to say needs to be said to preachers. If sheep from another pasture wander into the field you have put in trust with, call the shepherd whose field they watch over where they come from, and let him know. Can I read it again? You know, the Bible represents a lot of times the work of God is farming, sheep and shepherds. Amen. If sheep from another pasture wanders into the field you have been put in trust with, call the shepherd whose field they watch over, where they come from, and let him know. You know why you ought to do something like that? So when the shepherd rides by and sees the sheep that he's supposed to be tending to in their pasture, he won't think that shepherd of that sheep's a thief. And he began to say, if my sheep are in his pasture, he might want my cows next. And if he wants my cows, he might want my chickens. If I can't trust him with my sheep, I ain't going to be able to trust him with around my wife. Because if he'll steal one thing, he'll steal another. Anyhow, Galatians chapter number 5. It's called, you know what it's causing? And y'all ain't pastors of churches, but I'm kind of venting a little bit. Bear with me in my folly. You know what it's causing? It's causing when another pastor meets another pastor in town or at another meeting that he can't look at him straight and trust him because he knows what he's doing behind his back. I don't ever want to get to a point where I run into another preacher somewhere that I have to blush and bow my head or go down another aisle or go to the other side of the church because I'm ashamed to confront him because I know what I've been doing ain't right. Division. And you know what? Not any insult of any way, but the Bible represents sheep as dumb. But shepherds ought not to be dumb. Sheep could wander in another pasture. They ain't got much sense. But it's the shepherd that ought to have enough sense to say, hey, what are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be grazing in that pasture over there where the Lord put you? Why are you in my grass? Well, you can't say that, though, because that'll make your numbers in your church go small. Because you can build a church off other churches.